At this very moment you are between life and death. You may not feel it, but many incredible processes are happening inside you. There are an incredible number of processes going on inside you, and these processes never stop. Imagine yourself as a spring falling from an escalator that is moving upward. Fall is a process of cellular self-reproduction, and the escalator is a physical law that forces you to move forward. Being alive means that you are constantly moving and not turning anywhere. Once you reach the top of the escalator, you can't fall any further and die forever. It's a little alarming, but the universe wants you to reach the top. How do you avoid it? And why do you avoid it? Cells are the basis of all living things. A cell is a part of the inanimate universe that has been separated from the rest of the universe to do its own thing for a while. When this separation ceases, the cell dies and returns to the inanimate universe. Unfortunately, the universe hopes that life won't do this. For some reason the universe doesn't like exciting things. She tries to be as boring as possible. Yes, that's better. We call this principle entropy, and it is a fundamental law of the universe. It is very complex and unintuitive, so we will tell you more about it in the video. We'll show you what you need to know. Living organisms are fascinating by nature. Cells are filled with millions of proteins and millions of simple molecules, such as water, inside the cell. Thousands of complex self-renewal processes occur hundreds of thousands of times per second. To remain alive and attractive, a cell must constantly work without allowing itself to reach entropy, become useless and die. The cell must maintain its isolation from the rest of the universe. For example, a cell achieves this by differentiating the concentration of certain molecules inside and outside itself, and actively remove excess molecules. To perform these actions, the cell needs energy. Energy is the ability of anything in the universe to do work, the ability to move or influence objects, in other words, the ability to produce change. This ability cannot be created or destroyed. The total amount of energy in the universe cannot be changed. The reasons for this are unknown. Therefore, billions of years ago, one of the most important tasks for the first living organisms was to obtain useful energy. We know nothing about the first cells, except that they obtained energy from simple chemical reactions. Then they discovered a more advanced energy transmission system, the energy building block of life. It became adenosine triphosphate, ATP. Its structure is the most suitable molecule for the production and release of energy. In reality, none of this is possible. When cells need energy to make molecules or repair broken micromachines, ATP can be broken down and used. The body can break down ATP and use its chemical energy to do work and create change. In other words, organisms can do many different things. We do not know when and how the first ATP molecules appeared on Earth. However, all living organisms known to us use ATP or something similar to it to make their internal mechanisms work. ATP is necessary for almost all processes. Plants, fungi, bacteria and animals require ATP to survive. Without ATP there would be no life on Earth. Perhaps she would not exist anywhere at all. The arrangement of molecules to produce energy is an amazing thing. Early life missed the greatest source of energy, sun. The sun combines atoms and emits photons, which carry energy into the solar system. But this energy is raw and inedible. It must be recycled. After hundreds of millions of years of evolution, cells have finally found a way to eat the sun. Cells absorb radiation and convert most of it into useful chemicals that keep them alive. We call this process photosynthesis. We produce vibrating photons from electromagnetic energy and use some of this energy to join different molecules together. We use some of this energy to bind different molecules together. Warning. Very simplistic. Electromagnetic energy is converted into chemical energy and accumulates in ATP molecules. This process became even more efficient when some cells learned to create more efficient chemical packages. Glucose or sugar. Glucose, or sugar, is easily distributed, contains a lot of energy and is very tasty. It is so convenient that some cells decided not to engage in photosynthesis on their own, but to feed on other cells. They ate other photosynthetic cells and took glucose and ATP from them. Many consider this to be one of the greatest cartoonish betrayals in the history of evolution. However, everything continued as before. Photosynthetic cells could produce energy mainly on their surface. Therefore, the maximum energy output was limited. This somewhat reduced the evolutionary potential. With time, some cells produced sugar, others consumed it. Evolution was quite successful, but the overall situation remained unchanged for hundreds of millions of years. One day one cell ate another. Instead, the cells became one. Nothing changed that day, but the earth changed forever. Her cells became the ancestors of all animals on the planet. Blue whales, amoebas, dinosaurs, jellyfish, armadillos, Malayan vulpra, and, of course, they can all trace their existence back to this point. The fusion of two organisms is very important, because when these two cells became one, they became more powerful. Previously independent internal cells stopped fighting for survival. They could focus on one thing, ATP production. Mitochondria have become the power plant of the cell. The host cell's job was to survive in a dangerous world and find food for mitochondria. Mitochondria essentially turned photosynthesis into a similarly complex process. Mitochondria use oxygen and precursors to burn sugar molecules that we get from eating other organisms. They burn them along with oxygen and precursor molecules to create new energy-rich ATP molecules. This process works like a small furnace and emits waste products such as water, and releases a small amount of kinetic energy, which is felt as body heat. This initial division of labor allows the new cell to use much more energy than any other cell that existed before. This opened up new possibilities for evolution and allowed more complex cells to exist. At some point, these cells began to form small groups or communities. This led to the emergence of multicellular organisms, which eventually led to the quam. Today you are a mountain of trillions of cells, each filled with dozens, if not hundreds, of tiny mechanisms. Dozens, if not hundreds, of tiny machines supply the energy that keeps you alive. If this process is interrupted for even a few minutes, you will die. Mr. Duck. I don't feel well. But if life is so fragile, shouldn't we store ATP the same way we store sugar in our fat cells, so as not to die if we stop breathing for a while? If life has already solved so many problems so that we can live now, then what will happen to those who will die soon? Even such a simple bacterium as Escherichia coli produces 50 times its own mass in ATP per cell division. Trillions of cells need a lot of ATP to keep you alive. Every day, your body produces and converts about 90 million billion molecules of ATP. To survive one day, a person must consist exclusively of ATP. It is almost impossible to accumulate enough ATP to survive for at least a few minutes. ATP molecules are very well suited for the rapid transfer of energy. This happens because ATP molecules contain only 1% of the energy of glucose molecules and have 3 times the mass. Therefore, ATP is constantly produced and immediately used. Thus, ATP is constantly produced and used very quickly. It's like a spring in an escalator. It's freaky. There is a molecule that is always needed for life. Without them, if there is even a short break, the spring will stop. We are together, and we have to come up with everything we can find. It's like driving a car at full speed and making fuel in the trunk. We use garbage that we pick up on the side of the road as fuel. As far as we know, this all started billions of years ago. Tiny pieces of the universe, inanimate objects, came together and for a moment became something else. In an instant it became something else. It could support itself. It could even grow. At that moment the spring began to move, and since then it has been moving. From the first cell to you, who are now watching this video, at some point you will be reunited with the rest of the inanimate universe. Perhaps you will tell her about your adventures, or maybe not. But before you decide to do this, you have to make the most of your life. It's much more interesting to deal with the inanimate universe.